This episode is proudly sponsored by Martha Mock and Super Confident Coaching, superconfidentcoaching.com.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to another episode of our guest speaker interview. Today, I got someone very special, someone who have been through a lot in her journey, but she didn't actually take the dark side. She decided to help others and be the light. So, on someone like that, I got to have her on my show. And most importantly, we're going to talk about a topic that a lot of us are fearful of. It's not sales. It's not about marketing. It is about forgiveness. Something that I have to learn in my journey, not to just forgive others, but also to forgive myself. So I would like to introduce my guest today. Adinah, how are you? Please introduce yourself.
I'm doing amazing. Thank you for having me. I am a wife, a mom. That's like my most important titles, but I'm a retired psychology professor. I was a youth counselor for 14 years. I'm also a podcaster. My podcast, Black Butterfly, Black Pearls, is on anywhere you get podcasts. I'm also a marriage coach with my husband. We've been marriage coaches since 2003. And we are on Nick and Adinah, NIKANDADINAH on YouTube. And I'm also a published author. My book, Black Butterfly Blue, The Pain of Infertility and the Power of Forgiveness, is on Amazon. So I wear a few hats.
You are such an amazing person because I do know that strong woman like you does carry a lot of different hats. And especially when you have so much to juggle, you're still giving us your time to come on our show to share your knowledge and to tell us about you. That's something that I'm truly grateful of and so happy to be able to hear from you. So with forgiveness, I know that a lot of us always say, hey, just move on, let's forgive, let's do all of that. But if I ask you, does forgiveness mean reconciliation?
Absolutely not. Forgiveness does not mean reconciliation. I can forgive you, but understand that you're not healthy enough to be in my life. So I
Ah,
can forgive you and still not have a relationship with you, keep you over there. Because part of it is when you forgive someone and you give them total access to yourself again, then they oftentimes, because they haven't healed, they have an opportunity, or oftentimes they re injure you and pull you back into the unforgiveness space.
mm.
And so, no, it doesn't mean reconciliation. I can forgive you, but that doesn't mean you can come to my house and have dinner.
Oh, that is so good because I have a lot of women in our group saying that they've been contacted by their ex-partner. They've been having this trouble about moving forward in their relationship, that they wanted to be able to get out from a toxic environment, but they keep thinking about, oh, like, if I have to hold a grudge to remind myself that I keep him at bay. But you just told us that you don't need to do that. And forgiveness doesn't need that we need to invite them back for dinner and sleep with them or anything like that. It is
Please
just
don't sleep
about,
with them.
I know. Like that's when trouble starts again, isn't it? So like it doesn't mean anything like that.
Yeah.
Because one of the things that I learned in my journey about forgiveness is that I was listening to one of the audio courses, and they said that one sentence that sends an electric shock in me. She said that you can forgive the other person, but the first person you need to forgive is yourself. You need to forgive yourself for being that person at that moment. You need to
Mhm.
forgive yourself for being this person that who were hurt. And you need to forgive yourself for being there, doing all the silly things that you're questioning yourself on now, and you need to forgive yourself. Oh my God, when I was listening to that, I was like, really? I need to do that? Because like a lot of listener knows that I come from a DV marriage as well. And I did a lot of healing to forgive him. But one thing I really forgot to do is to forgive myself. So what do you like? what should forgiveness be? Like how, like, who is forgiveness for?
Can I ask you one more question or
Mm,
answer one more question? I encourage you to, that was an amazing list, but also add forgive myself for not protecting the little girl inside me.
yes, that's a good one.
Forgive myself for not standing up for her when I needed to. And
Yes.
that's an amazing opportunity, I think, because we all have a little person inside of us that have been
Mm,
hurt through the years.
yes.
And so part of it is to forgive myself for not protecting her and giving her the voice to be who she needs to be.
Oh,
You
yes,
know,
yes,
and many of us have daughters. And
yes.
so we get the chance to look in the face of a person that looks like us, act like us. We get a chance, I think, to relive our life by seeing them. Not that you're going to put so much into your daughter to where it's pressure, but we get an opportunity because, like with my daughter, she's different than I am. And if I raise my voice, she's like flustered. And so I have to talk to her differently. Sometimes, as a mom, you have to be stern and you have to show them and tell them what you've seen and what you know. Because I had my daughter at 41. So
Mm,
she's 10 now. So, of
mm,
course, I'm 51. And so, life, there's a lot of life under 50 years. And
yes.
so, with my daughter, I've had to say, no, 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 listen to me, please. I've had to bring it down to where I'm not yelling and screaming, but I'm looking at her and I'm saying, this is what you need to know. This is what you need to learn from your mommy. I love you. I'm not going to tell you anything wrong. But sometimes we have to speak to ourselves as kindly as we would speak to another person. So I
Oh,
encourage us as women to because I say something sometimes like, Adina, are you serious? Why would you ever do that? So I've had to talk, my self talk had to be calmer, milder, meeker, more loving to me. So
oh,
that's why I would encourage you to protect that young person inside you. But
that is so beautiful.
yeah. So, but you had a question, and I didn't want to go off the deep end, but I did want to answer your question. And your
Yeah.
question was, who is forgiveness for?
Mm,
Forgiveness is a personal act. I
mm,
am forgiving that person for me. So I don't walk around with the bitterness. So I won't walk around angry. We've seen individuals who are so bitter and so angry, you can't even speak to them certain times of the day. We've seen them, we've all seen them where it's like, and they're bringing up things that happened 50 years ago. And you're like, really? Can you just forgive that and move on so you can be healthy? I mean, we've all seen the person where you say, good morning, and we're bopping through our day, and they're like, what's good about it?
yeah.
And they're spewing all that anger, hate, and unforgiveness. And we don't want to be like that, which is why I really had to go through my process of forgiveness because I did not want to be angry. I wanted to be the parent that my children needed.
Oh, this is something very eye-opening for me because I didn't even look at forgiveness as such a level that understanding why some of us are so bitter. Some of us are so triggered when something is on. Because like for the last 2 days, I've been dealing with a lot of negativity in our group. And it has been draining me. I was working till 1:30 last night, trying to actually work things on. And people don't understand the amount of work it takes to actually help a community. And a lot of people feel like that they're privileged to be better than someone else. And I see it as a way that what is troubling you? What is the troubling you inside? What is that thing that I don't understand, but I don't even know how to help you with? And I think that today, listening to what you just said about who forgiveness is, that just enlightened me. I just realized that all they need is forgiveness. So guess what? I'm going to give them that forgiveness. I'm going to give them that forgiveness that they haven't given themselves, that they
Mhm,
haven't decided that, hey, I need to look deeper within myself where that anger come from, where that bitterness come from. And why do I actually get triggered like this? Because I haven't forgive something in my
mhm,
life. This is
mhm,
just so enriching. I'm so grateful, Adina, for sharing that knowledge with us because that will help so many of us. Because I don't know, is it that stage of our lives going into menopause or going through menopause? Still yet to actually trying to understand it. But I think a lot of us is getting triggered it very easily. Yeah, put a fan up.
I'm looking for my van. Right.
Love you for it. Oh, it's so good. Like that's what I find that it is so good to understand and talking to different people about it. I know that like sometimes being in a group that has so many people, do have 13,000 people today, and that's a big group, and we try to actually help everyone. But having that forgiveness that you just share with me, it let me understand that where their mindset is. It let me
Mhm.
understand that, hey, it's okay. I have extra to give and I can give them that forgiveness they need. So I'm
Yeah.
so grateful for sharing that with me. So, if I may ask you another question, does the offender need to know that I forgive them and forget them?
No, because forgiveness is a personal act.
Mm,
So for me, okay, say for instance, I'm driving down the street and someone cuts me off, and
mm,
I'm like, that's
mm,
the last thing I need today. Do I need to drive by that person and say, hey, I forgive you? No, because they're looking at me like, what are you talking about, crazy? So oftentimes when people are offending other people, they're hurt. And so
mm,
they're just basically wounding people in their path. So because forgiveness is a personal act, is for me, there's no need for me to have a conversation with you. And
mm,
whatever that is, there are so many different techniques you can do for forgiveness. I wrote about it in my book. I did
mm,
all the techniques. Me being a psychology professor, and me
mm,
being a counselor for 14 years, I did all
yes.
the techniques, and it it did not work for me until
Mm,
I put in my brain, oh, that's not necessary. Everything I have done is not necessary. The only thing I need to do is give myself the okay to forgive them. I have
mm,
to tell myself, and whatever that technique may be, sometimes I look at individuals and I look at them and I say, you're a wounded child. So therefore, I need to feel sorry for you. I can't
mm,
be angry at you because you're lashing out. I mean, think about it. We have a 2-year-old, and if they're kicking and screaming, we have
mm,
compassion for them. And that's
mm,
the way we have to do for individuals that are much older, but they're kicking and screaming because that's how they show that they're in pain, they're hurting. So
mm,
there are so many different techniques that we can use to forgive. Journaling is a major one, which is how I ended
mm,
up getting my book, because I just kept journaling the things that were happening.
mm,
Oftentimes we think we need someone to apologize to us for us to forgive them,
mm,
and that's not necessarily true. I've had
yes.
individuals to apologize to me. I've talked about it in my book. I had
Mm,
an individual on her deathbed in hospice who
mm,
apologized to me for being rude to me for
mm,
years. She wrote me out of my dad's will when I was 3 years old. How do you write a 3-year-old out of a will? How do you tell a 3-year-old they can't eat, that their
mm,
father can't take care of them? But
mm,
she apologized to me on her deathbed in hospice right before she died. And
mm,
my rationale was that wasn't for me, that was for her. But
mm,
also, I took from that experience, I don't want to be on my deathbed apologizing to anybody. So I want to get it right the
yes.
first time. I want to get it right now while I'm healthy, while I can have a relationship with individuals if I can. And that way
Mm,
it doesn't hurt my relationship with others. For her to go on her deathbed and to feel the need to apologize, what was the turmoil and the torment that she had?
mm,
What was the pain she was feeling during that time for her to
mm,
be that angry to write a 3-year-old out of someone's will? So I have to have compassion for her. And therefore, that gives me an opportunity to forgive that person. And I didn't tell her I forgave her because I had already forgiven her prior to that. It was my
mm,
process that I had to go through. So her
mm,
apologizing to me on my deathbed, I was like, what do I do with that?
mm,
What? There's nothing for me to do.
mm. That is good, isn't it? Like even just having that opportunity to apologize, because I know that a lot of us that who went through grief, that we find that we didn't apologize enough. So how would you suggest someone like that to like find that forgiveness from within?
If the person apologizes to you, I think we have to work on the process of forgiveness prior to that person apologizing. I sent you a copy of my podcast where
Mm,
my podcast partner, we've been friends for over 45 years, and I was triggered. You have to understand, when you forgive someone, you still may be triggered by something. And I'm
mm,
just scrolling on YouTube and was triggered by a situation that had happened almost 30 years ago. And
mm.
it triggered me so bad. So I went to podcast about it. And I was so good because my friend of 45 years, she's been with me the whole time, and she was able to ask the right questions for me not to get into a space of unforgiveness. And when
Mm.
individuals listen to the process that I went through with her, you can understand that forgiveness. I mean, people say things like, "Oh, I forgave that person. Like, I went to the store." Or someone will say, "Oh, I went through a divorce. Like, I went through to the store." It's not that easy. It's a process. And so
Yes.
we have to understand that the process of forgiveness is a process, and we may get triggered again, but
Mm.
from one trigger to the next, it's easier to process those things, process your feelings, and understand, wait a minute, I forgave that person, and move on and get out of that angry space.
Yes, if anyone's interested in looking into that podcast on how to deal with your triggers in forgiveness, feel free to check out the comments below and it will be tagged there. Also, remember that all of this is recording are in our membership community space. So you can go back in there anytime by a click of a button going into the topic that interests you. It will make it a lot easier for you to find this chapter again. So, Adina, is there any other things that you can share with us about forgiveness? And what are some of the tips that you can advise us on doing to have more forgiveness and compassion for others?
I would encourage you, first, have compassion for yourself.
Mm,
Second, forgiveness is a process. Don't expect that, because your process is your process. Don't expect that I should be over it already. No, that's re injuring yourself if you feel that way. Also, give yourself some grace. Give yourself grace in the process of forgiveness, and understand that forgiveness is not reconciliation. Oftentimes, individuals are not healthy enough to be in our life. So,
mm,
forgiving them is for me, but I don't have to bring them back into my circle. I can
mm.
forgive them and they can stay over there.
Yes.
I can forgive them and they can continue to co-parent with me. They can continue to be my teacher or whatever the case may be, but I don't have to give them total access to me because they're not healthy enough to handle that part of it. So those are
Mm,
the things I would leave with individuals, and take care of that little girl or that little boy inside of you. That way you can stand up for them, because oftentimes that little person wants us to stand up for them and recognize that that person may be a little person that's lashing out too, but you don't get to lash out at me because I'm not going to accept that in my life.
that is so true because I, okay, everybody deserves forgiveness. Okay, I do believe in that. But sometimes a lot of people are just not at the same vibration as you are going through. They're not at the right time, they're not at the right space. Give them that time to heal. Give them that time to release and give them that time to find the path that they want. And even that means that you have to cut them off in your life. Even that means that you have to block them. There's a button that I've been using a lot called ban and block. It's amazing. It's not that I hate any of them. It's not about hate. It doesn't need to go into that level. And it's more about I'm giving you space, I'm giving me space so we can actually go and heal and do that healing ourselves. Because
Mhm.
otherwise, I don't think anyone, even with someone like me who's always light and bubbly, we will get affected. We will get our mental mind going down the drain. And it's very easy for a woman over 40 years old going through menopause or going through menopause, trying to like find that balance is very, very tough. So don't be afraid, like what you have just said. Don't be afraid to give them that time. Cut that off, ban it, block it, see you later. It's okay. There's so many other people that are good, that understand you. that
Mhm.
can give you the compassion and support you need at that moment, do
Yeah.
it. Please do that.
Well, and part of that is setting those boundaries. You have to set
Mm,
boundaries with a relationship because we might be co-parents. We might have to raise this child together, but you don't get to know what's going on in my personal life. I have a
mm,
life separate from what's going on. And here's the thing. Everybody that we forgive, I'm not saying that you have to always put them out of your life. With the
mm,
person in my book that I had to go through the process of forgiveness, I would tell them, so I don't disrespect you. I need a break. I need to
mm,
process what's happening. So let me take a break. And they would allow me that space to take a
mm,
break when needed. And then
mm,
I would come back and have a conversation with them and explain to them my boundaries and what was okay and what was not okay. We did a lot of communication
mm.
through the whole process of forgiveness because it was a process. I wish I could have been one of these people that I can just tiptoe through tulips and not worry about it anymore. But I did all the techniques. I did the empty chair where I screamed at the chair. I wrote journals. I yelled, I screamed, I punched things. I made that person apologize. I mean, I did all the things.
Mm.
I'm
And
not
what?
one of these persons, people that can teach I can't teach a skill and not be tested through that. And so I
Yes.
had to do all the things until I had to realize that person had nothing to do with it. They injured me in a certain space, but I had the power to forgive them regardless to what they said and didn't say.
Oh, wow. Taking that power back. Listeners, that's the key, okay? You have the power to forgive. They cannot hurt you anymore as soon as you realize you are forgotten, you are forgiven. You're no longer that little girl that been hurt. You're no longer that person who was powerless. Your current self has grown up to be so strong that you can protect your inner child again. That is such a gold piece that we just got from you. I know that I can talk to you for days about all the topic in there, and I'm really looking forward that in the future that we can meet up with you again and then doing more exercise and activity to go with you about forgiveness and understanding. And I really again thank you again for your time for giving us to us.
Thank you for having me.
It is wonderful to have all of you listeners coming back to our space again, and catch us again next Wednesday for our guest speaker interview. Thank you.
This episode is proudly sponsored by Martha Mock and Super Confident Coaching, superconfidentcoaching.com.